Welcome to part 3 of the series where I'm reading to you from Ecopunk Foraging, How to Use Wild Plants for Food, Medicine, and Crafts. Now, we've already covered your first action step in video number 1. If you have not done that action step yet, please go back and do that. We talked in the last video about the emotional benefits of getting into foraging and how that can help heal you. And now we're going to get into action step number 2 coming up here. So please be sure to do action step number 1 before doing action step number 2, okay? These action steps are designed to guide you through the process of becoming a competent forager in just this little skinny book. So we are going to get right into it now with Trust the Process on page 11. Trust the process. As you begin your foraging journey and do the action steps in this book, some cool things will happen to your mind, your body, and your environment. Take it at your own pace. Don't rush yourself. Where consumer culture demands speed, nature does things in its own time, and that includes you. You are not just a consumer, you are a part of nature. Enjoy it. Don't die. Don't die. Before we venture further, let's tackle the number one fear I hear from new foragers. How do I know what is poisonous? Great question. Solid instinct. Nobody wants their foraging journey to end in a very dramatic, very permanent way. The fear is valid, but it usually comes from the assumption that learning about plants works like learning in school. Memorize a bunch of facts, then get tested. But here's the thing. If the test involves eating the wrong plant, the stakes are a lot higher than just flunking a quiz. There are many ways to learn, but for our purposes, let's focus on 2: proactive learning and reactive learning. Proactive learning is the academic way. First, you cram your brain full of information. Then, when faced with a problem, you dig through your mental archives, hoping to remember the right answer. This works fine in a classroom, but not so much when the wrong answer could involve a stomach pump or worse. Reactive learning. Reactive learning flips it around. First, you run into a problem, something you don't know. Then you observe, gather clues, do your research, and figure it out. Think of it like an open book pop quiz. This is how most of us learn real-life skills. Something breaks, you figure out how to fix it. You're hungry, you figure out what you can eat. You see a plant, you figure out what it is and what it's good for. When I moved to Southern Appalachia, I did the good student thing. I bought stacks of field guides, studied pictures of local plants, and made a whole wish list of cool things I wanted to find. But when I stepped outside, nothing on my list was actually growing around me. The field guides had pictures of flowers and fruits, useless when the plants weren't blooming or fruiting. Instead, I found hundreds of plants my books did not cover, including edible invasive species and some truly gnarly toxic ones I'd never heard of before. There are around 390,000 known plant species and about 150,000 named fungi, and scientists are discovering more every year. No single field guide is going to cover every plant in your local woods, backyard, or roadside ditch. Even if it did, memorizing thousands of names is not the most efficient or fun way to learn. What is efficient? Training your eyes and your brain to really see what's in front of you. Describe it, break it down, ask good questions. That's how you get accurate answers. And avoid unpleasant surprises on your plate. All of my field guides and proactive learning wasn't what saved me from poisoning myself. Reactive learning did. Careful observation and reactive learning. Most of your foraging skills will come from reactive learning, encountering something, observing it closely, asking the right questions, and hunting down the answers. Proactive learning is great too, especially if you love books, but you don't need a degree in botany to get started. A little foundational knowledge helps. It gives you the right words to describe what you're seeing, but you don't need any prior knowledge to start. The first step, observation, is completely safe. The next step in reactive learning, gathering clues, is crucial to discovering your plant's identity and how it can be used safely. All right, can you spot the difference? We've got a picture here of poison, hemlock, and Queen Anne's lace. So take a good look at these two. Check out the illustration above of poison hemlock and Queen Anne's lace. At first glance, these two members of the carrot family look like twins, but don't let their similar looks fool you. One makes a lovely snack, the other is poisonous. Yes, it's the poison hemlock that's poisonous. Poison hemlock has a smooth stem with purple blotches. Queen Anne's lace has a hairy stem. Underneath the flower cluster, the umbel, poison hemlock has a puny little bract, those little modified leaves below the umbel. Queen Anne's lace, on the other hand, shows off with a long feathery bract like she's wearing lacy petticoats from a royal wardrobe. These are just a couple of the many differences you will see when observing these plants in real life. People love to call poison hemlock a deadly look-alike for Queen Anne's lace, but let's be real. Once you train your eyes, you'll see they are not identical at all. Their leaves, stems, texture, even their flowers all have distinct vibes. It just takes a little practice and attention. Here's how I like to remember the difference between these two. The queen has hairy legs under her skirt. This phrase has been around for a long time, but if you have a creative streak, making up your own silly stories, personifications, or funny descriptions that highlight the details you observe in plants helps commit them to memory. All right, second action step. Now again, if you didn't do action step number 1 yet, go back to the first video. The first video is where action step 1 is. Go back to the first video, do action step 1 before moving on to action step 2. Action step 2, gather clues. Once you have observed a plant, it's time to start gathering clues. Think of yourself as a detective on a case, not solving a crime, but uncovering the identity of a mysterious stranger. Every part of the plant, from its leaves to its location, offers hints about its identity. You won't find fingerprints or a smoking gun, but you will notice things like unique flowers, prickly defenses, or unusual scents. These are all clues. Your job is to collect the evidence, clues that will reveal the true identity of your green suspect. Photographs. Use your phone or camera to take several pictures of the plant and its environment. Capture different parts of the plant, the stem, the leaves, the flowers, etc., and where it is growing. Bonus points for snapping shots of any insects or wildlife around the plant. They're clues too. Photographs can yield excellent leads. Notes. Write down where and when you found the plant. The time of year, the environment, the soil type, and surrounding wildlife can tell you a lot about the plant. Is it growing in sun or shade, on a hill or in a field? Describe the soil, the geological features. Is it growing on rocks, soil, sand? Some plants are very particular about where and or when they grow, so these details help you narrow your search. Sketches. It doesn't matter if you can draw or not. Sketches can jog your memory during research, the next step after observation and gathering clues. Sketches are especially helpful when describing something difficult to put into words or when a good photo isn't possible. The goal isn't to create art, but to capture the essence of what you see. For example, if I say, draw a picture of a leaf, you might draw an oval with a line down the middle. But if I hand you a dandelion leaf and I say, draw this leaf, you might draw a long, messy, wavy shape with jagged edges. That's great. A messy squiggle that represents what you are actually seeing is far more useful than a perfect oval that doesn't. Samples. Taking a piece of the plant home can be incredibly helpful for identification. A sample allows you to notice details you might have missed in the field, like tiny hairs or veins on the underside of a leaf, or whether the stem is hollow, all vital clues. However, don't take samples if you don't have gloves and a container to store them in. Some plants have toxic chemicals or irritating oils that can transfer onto your skin or clothes. And never pick a plant if you only see one. You wouldn't want to accidentally harm an endangered species. Spore prints. If your curiosity leads you into the world of fungi, extra precautions are necessary. Mushrooms can be tricky to identify, and some are so deadly that even medical intervention might not save you. If your mushroom has a cap, taking a spore print can be a lifesaver. To make a spore print, remove the cap and place it gill side down on a piece of paper. Cover it with a glass jar or a cup and let it sit for at least an hour. The spores will fall out onto the paper, revealing their color. Spore prints vary greatly, and two mushrooms that look identical might only be distinguishable by their unique spore color. Some spores show off better on white paper, others on black. I use half black, half white paper so that I can make the color easier to see. All right, so that leaves us going into our next section, plant suspect profile, 16 clues to look for. That's on page 17. We'll pick that up in the next video. So if you haven't already done step 1, observation, go back and do that. Step 2, gather clues. Go ahead and get it started. Now we'll take a deeper dive into what clues and how to gather the best and most effective clues in the next reading. But you can get started just with the clues that we discussed in this one step here. That is photographs, notes, sketches, samples, and if you have a mushroom with a cap, doing a spore print. All right, I will see you on the next one. Bye.